Okay, so for this video, guys, I'm sorry I forgot to record an intro and an outro. I barely noticed whenever I was finishing editing it that I forgot to record them, but sorry about that. But yeah. Anyways, I'm going in with my P. Louise base in the shade Rumor Zero and just spreading it all over my eyelid with a flathead Morphe brush, then going in with my beauty blender and just lightly dabbing that out to make it more smooth and easier to apply the shadow on. Next, I went in with my Morphe M152 brush and I got into my James Charles palette, taking that dark green in the corner and just packing that onto my crease area where I wanted that shadow to be at. And I didn't pack it all over, I just lightly packed it into that crease, and I didn't really blend it out because I smoked it out later with a different color, but just like that, barely packing it on, not all the way over either, just lightly like so. Once I was finished with that, I dipped into my Morphe 3503 and I went into that lime green right there, that kind of limeish light green, and I used my M506 brush and just lightly blended it out like so. And now I just kept on blending it lightly upwards and kept doing that until I kind of got the blend that I liked. And once I was finished with that, I dipped into my Morphe Artistry palette, taking the colors Nature and Art, which is just a light green and a pretty blue, and I just used my Morphe 441 brush and lightly smoked out the edges like so. And once I finished with that, I dipped back into that dark green from my James Charles palette, taking my M506 and just lightly pecking that color and blending it back out, just so that dark green can really pop and stand through with the rest of the look. And once I finished with that, I just dipped into my makeup remover with my Q-tip and I began cutting out the crease shape I wanted. And with this one, I went over and up just to give that top shading a really nice sharp edge and cutting it all the way up like so. And then once I was finished with that, I went back in with my P. Louise base in the shade Rumor Zero, and I just began cutting my crease with that, just lightly cutting it over the edges where I had already removed the makeup and blending it upwards. Really be careful with this part and do not try to mix the colors together, but just like so, cutting it over and then taking it upwards. And once I finished with that, I just got back into my James Charles palette, got into that white shade right there, and packed it all over my base where I just laid my P. Louise base at, just to set it and to smooth it out. That way it doesn't smear or budge or move throughout the day. And once I finished that, I went back into my James Charles palette, into that dark green that I had just used. And I took my Morphe M506 and I began just smoking it out, kind of outwards and upwards, almost like a wing shape on the bottom of my eyelid, making sure not to touch the edges of the top and the bottom together. And I just began blending upwards like so. And then I went into my Morphe 3503 palette and I took that lime green color that I had just used and blended out the edges of that dark green I just laid and lightly began dragging it upwards, kind of smoking out a little bit and giving it more of a blended faded look. And once I was finished with that, I dipped back into my artistry palette and got into that light green and that blue, mixed those colors together, and I used my Morphe 441 just to blend out the edges a little bit more and kind of smoke them out a little bit more. And yeah, that's basically how I got my wing shape on my eye, just lightly blending it out and blending up until I liked the way it looked. And once I was finished with that, I dipped back into my James Charles palette, got into that green, and I lightly just packed that back on to where I had laid it at first, just to darken up that color since it kind of got blended out. So lightly just packing it on like so. And once I was finished with that, I just went in with some makeup remover and a Q-tip and kind of cleaned any fallout and cleaned that edge up just to sharpen it up. And that basically was the end of this look. I'm sorry about not filming an outro. I promise next time I will not forget. But thank you for everyone for watching and see you guys next time.